right-hand side.
We will call the August 6th meeting of the Decatur County Area Plan Commission to order. The first thing, Mr. Hunter has a housekeeping order or announcement here.
Just in case there's an emergency situation, if we were to have to evacuate, we'd evacuate through the south door along the wall here, and then you can evacuate through the back entry to the auditorium and then out the main front entrance of the building. Also, if we were to have a weather situation where we needed to hold in place, we would go into the lobby area and go into the male and female restrooms. They're out there in the lobby area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Well, first item on our agenda is the minutes from our July 2nd, 2025 meeting, which you should all received in the mail or email. Look for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from July 2nd, 2025.
I'll second it.
Have a first and a second to approve the minutes from July 2nd, 2025. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes carry. With that being said, the two petitions that were to be heard tonight, APC 2025-20 and APC 2025-21, due to a clerical error in the mailing, will not be heard tonight. They will be heard at a later date. So I have nothing further unless somebody else has something. If not, I'll look for motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
If I could have your attention, please, just some housekeeping here. If we were to have an emergency situation and you needed to evacuate the auditorium, please do so through the south door along the south wall here, or back through the main door, entry doors at the back of the auditorium, and then exit through the lobby area to the parking lot. If we were to have weather where we need to shelter in place, the area is a men's and women's restroom in the lobby area, but not anticipating any bad weather, but those are emergency announcements I need to make. Thank you.
Before we get started with the meeting tonight, there is a sign-up sheet for speakers in the rear of the auditorium. If you've not had an opportunity and wish to speak tonight, we ask that you please sign that so we can work through that through this evening. We'll give you a few minutes to complete that. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and call the August 6th BZA meeting. There are Title VI forms in the back of the room if anyone wants to complete the anonymous survey. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the June 4th, 2025 meeting. You should all receive those and an opportunity to review them. Are there any additions or corrections? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept minutes.
I make a motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the June 4th meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Minutes approved. The next item on the agenda is the continuation of the BZA petition 2024-8. GNX Solar, Colby Solar is requesting a special exception for the construction of a commercial solar energy facility. The request falls under Decatur County Ordinance Article 20. The June 4th meeting was attached to the link in the notification for review there. Thank you. So as I said, this is a continuation of the prior meeting. So we will begin this meeting with the public comment section. First speaker will be Jason Kushme. A few housekeeping details. Since Jason represents a large portion of the community, he'll be allotted a certain amount of time, somewhere around 30 minutes. Following that, we have a list of speakers that would like to participate. Again, each of those will be limited to 3 minutes. The board will be allowed to add additional time if there is pertinent information. As always, we just ask that new information be brought to the board, and we keep that information relative to the petition at hand. So with that being said, Jason, you have the floor.
So, good evening. Again, my name is Jason Kuchme. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Snyder Morgan Kuchme, 4211 Clubview Drive, Fort Wayne, Indiana. As you noted, I do represent a number of property owners in the county, many who would be adjacent to the proposed project, and I've been asked to speak against GNX's application for special exception for their industrial solar operation. Specifically, I represent Decatur County Citizens Stop Industrial Solar and Wind, LLC, and I believe 226 other property owners. Again, a significant number of which own real property in the county, and all of whom are against this application. And I've given you a handout there. Again, it's the same handout I gave you at the last meeting. But there's a letter at the beginning there, and then just immediately behind the letter, there's a list of all the clients that I'm speaking on behalf of, as well as their names and addresses. Just by way of background, I've been heavily involved in solar issues for the past several years in probably about 26, maybe a little more than 26 counties in Indiana. And I've even had the pleasure of speaking to you previously in connection with the Greensburg solar application, which this board, as you know, turned down. I've included in your handout there, Exhibit 9, is a copy of your findings for the Greenberg solar matter. And those findings, frankly, in this case, I believe speak volumes. And I believe those findings also compel a denial of GNX's application. Any approval tonight, frankly, I don't think could be reconciled with those findings. And any approval tonight would, as a result, be both arbitrary and capricious, as well as contrary to law. Finding number 1 that you previously made stated that the approval would endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare of the community. And in that regard, this BZA noted that the attendance at the public meetings, the nature of the public's presentations, and the general information disseminated confirm that the proposed project would create dissension between the residents of the county and even between family members. You heard evidence previously in this matter, and you've got my client's submission, and I assure you that remains the case here with this application. There remains dissension, and this project most definitely is not something that the community wants to see. Your previous finding number 2 found against the project, noting that the rows of solar panels would result in a significant change in the essential character of the area, even with setbacks and screenings. And nothing has changed here with respect to this project. commercial solar is not something that exists in Decatur County. It's not something the county supports, and this project would also result in a significant change if it were approved. Your previous finding number 4 held that this BZA finds that there was uncertainty expressed regarding the change in property value in the area, as well as the changes to the use of property in close proximity to the project. That also is the case here. Exhibits 1 through 4 in your handout represent the same property value information that I submitted against the Greensburg solar application, and that information is equally relevant here. It includes statements from Indiana brokers confirming that their experiences trying to sell homes near solar developments. There's canceled showings, refusals to view. Those are real-life examples exemplifying the obvious. People do not want to live near these projects, and they struggle to sell their homes. There's no real market for it. Exhibit 2 contains an excerpt from the Indiana Court of Appeals decision involving the Mammoth Solar Project, and it notes a finding that was made by the Pulaski County Board of Zoning Appeals, and that finding was that it was undeniable and unavoidable that a significant number of the 220 homes within 1 mile of the proposed site would see a decrease in property values. And that reflects common sense. Normal folks don't want to live anywhere near these. Exhibit 3 in your handout contains a summary by an MAI appraiser of several peer-reviewed studies regarding the impact of industrial solar on neighboring property values. Those studies include several different universities, and across the board, those studies confirm what the local realtors found. There is a negative impact on property values. Exhibit 4 contains slides from a hearing in Bartholomew County on a solar application. And on those slides, Jeff Hillicord, who's a real estate broker in Columbus, Indiana, he reviewed the report that was prepared by Kirkland Appraisers, which is basically the same report that was given to you in this matter. And when Mr. Hillicord spoke, he confirmed that Kirkland's report does not paint an accurate picture of the studies that he's referencing and relies on for his conclusions. For example, Kirkland stated that a Lawrence Berkeley National Lab study found a 1.5% impact within a mile of a solar farm as compared to homes 2 to 4 miles from solar farms. But what Kirkland neglected to say, according to Mr. Hillicord, is that the same report stated that for homes within a half mile of a large-scale photovoltaic project compared to homes 2 to 4 miles away, they found a reduction in home sale prices in Minnesota of 4%, in North Carolina of 5.8%, and New Jersey 5.6%. And that same study also stated that their results suggest that there are adverse property value impacts for homes very close to industrial solar farm and for those predominantly in rural agricultural settings surrounded by large projects, specifically in rural areas where solar projects displace agricultural land uses and are larger. So just what we're talking about here tonight. Other failures with Kirkland's report are referenced in that handout. One example would be where he cites research by an author, but he then fails to reference that same author's thesis, which was entitled Solar Farms and Residential Values in North Carolina, where she analyzed 15,935 transactions and concluded that the construction of a solar farm decreases property values of houses within 1 mile by 8.7%. The effect increases to 12.5% if those homes are within a half mile. And there's many other examples in the Kirkland report of cherry picking just favorable statements, disregarding statements in other reports and conclusions in order to find the negative impact. And a true evaluation of Kirkland's own sources actually do support a negative impact. Finding number 5 that this BZA made against Greensburg Solar determined that the project will generate additional traffic, significant additional traffic, especially during the time of installation or other times where items are being delivered or removed from the site. Again, no different here with this project. And finding number 7, which I think is a big one, this BZA found that approval would substantially interfere with the comprehensive plan. In that finding, this BZA observed that not only does the county not support commercial alternative energy facilities, but actually discourages them. That is the language that you're not only going to find it in the comprehensive plan, but that's the language of your zoning ordinance. And those, both the plan and the ordinance language, are included as Exhibits 6 and 7 in your handouts, and those have not changed since your prior findings were made on the Greensburg solar matter. Your comprehensive plan, it talks at length about protecting agricultural resources and preserving agricultural land. It's probably the top priority in the plan. And the specific policy in the plan for alternative energy sources in the county is clear. And the plan says that it supports individual, on-site, non-commercial alternative energy sources. It then states the county does not support the development of commercial alternative energy supplies that would consume agricultural land. And the plan then recommends that zoning regulations be updated regarding commercial solar, and that happened with your solar ordinance. And so right at the outset in your solar ordinance, it says, or just reiterates what I just said in the comprehensive plan. So it's not just in the plan, but it's actually part of your ordinance. And your prior findings specifically address this, noting that the focus is to limit the amount of land taken out of agricultural production. Your prior findings even noticed that the proposed sheep grazing would not fulfill the intent of the plan. And I would submit that you need to stay consistent in your decisions. These solar projects, they eat up land, a lot of land, and this project will also. And it's not temporary. We're talking at least 30 years, and frankly, who knows how many owners. If I remember from one of the earlier hearings, GNEX stated that its intention is to flip the project if and when it gets approved. It has no intention of operating the solar project. Now, there are other materials in my letter as well, including tab 5, which is a study by a Michigan State University professor confirming the negative, direct, indirect, and induced effects of these developments in the millions of dollars. You know, these projects, they are not the panacea that the solar companies make them out to be. And I cannot tell you how many leaseholders end up regretting their decision once construction starts. I've had many reach out to me just personally. And GNEX, you know, their attempt to differentiate their project from the Greensburg solar project, it fails. I mean, you can put lipstick on a pig and it's still a pig. You know, we've all heard that saying before. They're still seeking to put an industrial solar plant in people's backyards with a substation, with thousands of panels spanning thousands of acres. You know, and while GNEX argues that their project only involves 2% of the land in Decatur County, if that door opens, Decatur County is just going to suffer like others do. I mean, Pulaski County now has over 30,000 acres under contract. 30,000. And I'll just want to make a few quick responses to some of the remaining points that were made at the last meeting. You know, there was an attempt to paint my clients as, you know, NIMBYs, not in my backyard, you know, kind of folks with respect to this project. You know, and they argued, hey, this is otherwise a very good project. They're just NIMBYs. And that's not the case. And I would just simply respond, your ordinance, your county ordinance discourages these, and people rely on your ordinance when they purchase property and when they decide to make investment. And the county has spoken. I mean, if the county wants to amend the zoning ordinance, the solar ordinance, or the comprehensive plan, that's one thing, but you cannot ignore what is on the books. And you cannot ignore your prior decision, which is also on the books. You know, it was argued last time that you can't tell people what to do with their land. And an example that was used is you can't tell somebody what plants to crop. It's their land, they can do whatever they want. Well, that's a very, I think, a misleading and a disingenuous argument. I mean, planting crops is a permitted use in an ag district. Commercial solar is not. Commercial solar is recognized to be troublesome, or at least potentially troublesome, and that's why special exception approval is needed. You have to have a public hearing. You're required to look at the impact. You're required to look at the elements required for approval of that. And you're allowed to or required to even impose appropriate conditions to alleviate some of the damage that these projects may cause if they meet the other requirements otherwise. It was claimed that the ordinance prohibits the consumption of ag land and that this project somehow instead protects farmland. They say it doesn't consume it, it protects it. Well, consume is not defined in Article 2 of your zoning ordinance, which is your definition section. And I would again refer you to your prior decision on how you interpret that. What does that mean? You've already found that these projects spanning thousands of acres with their solar panels in fact consume agricultural land. Even if they have sheep grazing, they're consuming that agricultural land. And you need to be consistent. Your comprehensive plan also confirms the county's intent, and again, it discourages these projects. You know, I just did a 2-second Google search the other day, and it stated that to consume land means to use it for various purposes, which can include residential, agricultural, industrial, recreational, or commercial activities. I mean, there's no question under any interpretation that this project would consume ag land, consume it for at least 30 years, and you've already decided that that's in fact the case with these types of projects. And finally, there was an attempt last time to portray the solar project as something, you know, it's good for the county, something that would provide maybe a cash windfall for the county. You know, I'm told that there was an EDA, an Economic Development Agreement, that was executed on Monday, I believe. But that has nothing to do with why we're here tonight. The question tonight is not whether solar is good or whether it's bad. The question is not whether solar would give the county $10 or $10 million. I mean, the sole issue tonight is whether a special exception should be granted, and that is a use issue. EDAs, tax abatements, other governmental approvals, none of those have any bearing on tonight. You are to consider the elements required for approval of a special exception and nothing else. And if those elements are not satisfied, as you've already decided, then you need to deny the application. And that's what we would ask that you do tonight. Upon the conclusion of whatever other evidence you receive tonight, please deny GNX's application. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, we'll continue on this evening's meeting with additional public speakers. Just as in the past, I'll call 2 names. We ask that the second name be prepared so we can make a quick transition. Starting the night will be Larry Hager. Susie Dean, you'll follow Larry. And again, we'll be limiting those to 3 minutes.
I have been labeled passionate throughout this process against these type of developments, and I have several good reasons for that. Born in 1962 on West Base Road, my home would be very close to all these projects. And I have planted and harvested crops on several of these fields that are in this project, along with drainage tile with my parent in these fields. I have visited and heard with the concerns of the neighboring property owners of several, which I have known for a long time, and I'll submit that to the BZA. Those landowners signed letters and their concerns about it. Some of them they sent direct, some decided not to, and I am submitting all those to you there this evening. And so that is some of the reason why I do feel passionate about this. Decatur County was established and built via an agricultural economy, and myself and several others in this community have crunched the numbers on these industrial solar projects, and as a summary, what they promise in potential and increased taxes in the future is the exact same income for the county as what it produces now. There is no change, not when all factors are put in. Meaning if we do choose to not do these projects, our county will financially continue on the dependable tax revenue stream with the profit on those acres that is reinvested back into our local economy, typically 4 to 7 times. They never factor in the economic losses to our local businesses who supply these acres, the seed, the fertilizer, the equipment, and the people who work those fields, or the added expenses to the road repairs or the fire protection. Those numbers they don't bring them out. We have to dig those for ourselves. And if we were to give them a large tax abatement, needless to say, it would change the numbers drastically. Unbeknownst to the public, the plan to convert 10 to 15,000 acres of an industrial solar landscape in the county began back in 2017. Unbeknownst to the public, this developer is still recording more leased acres in Decatur County over the last year since they filed this application. 72 of 92 counties in Indiana have moratoriums against this, including Decatur County, which is under a 2-year moratorium now. Our commissioners have recently publicly stated they do not support this project in Monday night's meeting. I have had much admiration for what a few of our local government officials have done to keep the recently signed economic development agreement from being a disaster. The developer's attempt to add additional language was relentless. In my discussions with several landowners, we have all agreed our community needs to return what our rural neighborhoods were before the arrival of industrial solar projects from foreign global corporations. Neighbors helping neighbors, friendly waves to each other on the roads, friendly conversations at our community events, working together to build a stronger local community. It is time for Decatur County to return to a dialogue of honesty, accountability, and transparency. It is a time to return to 2017. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Susie will be next. Joey Mack after that.
Good evening, board and members of the audience. Tonight, I would like to read something I thought was very moving. I hope this hits you like it did me. If I were the developer, inspired by Paul Harvey's If I Were the Devil, by Ryan Powell, Palmyra, Michigan. If I were the developer, I wouldn't come in loud, I'd come in quietly with polished brochures, promises of clean energy, and a name that sounded like hope. I'd talk in megawatts and tax benefits, never in family, farms, or futures. If I were the devil in a developer's suit, I'd whisper to a struggling farmer, lease your land. It's just sitting there. Think of the check. I'd wait for a bad harvest, a dry or wet year, a moment of desperation, and I'd offer an escape disguised as an opportunity. I'd hand over contracts longer than a man's legacy, full of fine print, silence clauses, and buried truths. I'd divide neighbors, give just enough to create tension, never enough to build community. I'd show up in Decatur County, Indiana, not in your township, and pass laws like SAE 1, clean, quiet laws, and take your zoning rights and hand them to people that you didn't elect. People who will never walk your fields. And if you fought back, I'd call you anti-progress and anti-science. I'd make sure your voice didn't count, even if your whole town stood up with you, because I wouldn't be here to help. I'd be here to take control, rights, and futures. I wouldn't talk about what happens when the panels age, when the land floods, and the toxins seep. I wouldn't mention the wildlife corridors destroyed or the property values that drop. I'd stand in your school gym, your fire hall, your township meeting, offering shiny dollars for the kids, knowing full well you'll never see them. Because when it's gone, the land, the soil, the trust, it's gone for good. What's left? Rusted frames, contaminated earth, and regret. But I'm not the developer. I'm your neighbor. I believe this land is worth more than a subsidy, that stewardship isn't for sale, that small towns aren't weak, just tired of being underestimated. To the men in suits who never fixed a fence or pulled a calf at 2 a.m., know this: you can buy the lease, the silence, the lobbyist, but you'll never buy the soul of this land. Not in Milford, not in St. Paul, not in Greensburg or Decatur County, Indiana. Because if I were the developer, I'd bet we wouldn't fight back, but I'd lose. Please vote no on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. It's Joey Mack. Following Joey would be Nick Winning.
I live at 5344 North County Road, 700 West. We live in native land. Most of the land flows into the rivers. They show their soil samples showing no change, but they don't show testing for silicone. They don't show metals, different toxins that will leak out when panels are broken or destroyed. They cause loss of humidity. Our fields produce humidity. There's many other concerns with allowing something like this to take a footprint into native land that was developed for agricultural. The Bible don't talk about solar panels. The Bible talks about using the earth to grow. I live on a hill at the bottom of a bowl, and there's like 5 mounds, and they all have native artifacts. And showing to experts have told me that they're ceremonial burial sites. Well, the only thing I ask you guys to do, because I don't see anybody wanting to break the law, there's state and federal regulations in place to ask tribal councils to come research the land or study the land themselves to make sure we're not covering up native burial sites. I mean, there's been other sites in the state that have put roads around it. But the biggest thing is it's toxic to the land. This is all going to flow into the Flat Rock River. And the other research that I've done is panels have a lifespan of 20 years. So if you're talking about a 30-year contract or a lease, what happens to the 5,500 acres of panels when the life expand goes away? They're toxic. They go to a landfill. So then we double that amount. I mean, why would we want this? Why would we want to produce more heat? The earth can't cool when you block it with a panel. The earth has to breathe at night. It cools off at night. The sun blocks it. There's erosion. None of their professionals last time, it was all orchestrated. You know, you got open fences. You're bringing goats in to tear up the weeds. There are fences with an opening below it. So what if a kid's playing in the yard and that goat attacks them? What are we going to say then? Oh, it's just one time. It's going to be okay. The percentage is low, but it's not okay. These people are not for this town. Their money may be, and money is great, but there's nothing good about money in my life. I just ask you guys just to make sure they follow the laws, the regulations, and vote no. But if you do vote yes, make sure that, you know, tribal councils are contacted to study the land, because St. Paul was settled in, the 1700s, 1600s by Indians. You know, they built it. I live on the south side, so my land hasn't been developed. My land hasn't been touched, and I have all these artifacts that prove what I'm saying, and I have them with me. But everybody in here says no. These people say yes, but they don't live here. They got the Great Lakes. Why don't they put the panels on the lake? They have solar panels that float on water. Cover up what they're known for, the Great Lakes. We're known for farmland. Why would we cover up our farmland? So I stand here and ask you guys just to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick, you're up. Jessica Harmeyer will be next.
Good evening. As most of you know, I'm standing here representing Farm Bureau as the president. So every year we send out a survey to our members and we ask about hot topics. So this one was, we sent out it and the survey revealed that our members oppose property owners leasing for solar. It also showed that we do support landowner property rights. So we then had to decide, how do we do this? So we asked them to rank them in order of concerns. And when they, when they ranked them in the order of their concern, we had 5 questions. Solar was number 1, that they were against it, and property owner rights was number 3. So with that, that's what the farmers of Decatur County say. So that's all I've got. We look forward to working with you guys on any other issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Cassie Tolson will be next after Jessica.
The trend talking
Okay.
here, is that okay?
That's great, thank you.
Okay. So, good evening. My name is Jessica Harmeyer, and I reside near the proposed Cobia Solar Development, and I want to speak about a fundamental principle we've talked about a lot tonight, which is property rights, both mine and my neighbors. You'll hear it said that it's their land, and they have the right to do what they want with it. But that's only part of the truth. Property rights are not unlimited, especially when a landowner's use begins to infringe on the rights of others. This isn't just a philosophical argument, but it's backed by law. In Indiana, zoning exists specifically to manage land use so that one property owner's actions do not unjustly impact their neighbors. Indiana code outlines the criteria that a Board of Zoning Appeals must follow when granting a special exception, including whether it will substantially interfere with the use and enjoyment of a property, and be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. So let's be clear. Transforming thousands of acres of farmland into an industrial solar complex with fencing, transformers, access roads, thousands of panels, security lights, it does interfere with the use and enjoyment of our neighboring homes. This is not a minor variance. This is a fundamental reclassification of land use, which I, as a non-participating neighbor, never agreed to. In fact, the legal principle of private nuisance in Indiana states that a landowner can be held liable if their land use causes an unreasonable interference with another's use and enjoyment of their property. And this has been upheld repeatedly, including in a specific example that I'll reference called Wampler versus Palmerton. The court in Wampler affirmed that even lawful activities can constitute a nuisance if they cross the line into unreasonable interference. And the test is not whether the landowner intended the cause of harm, but whether the effects on the neighbor are substantial. By allowing a solar developer to move into next to our homes that were never zoned for industrial scale activity, you are permitting a land use that goes beyond private rights, and it directly violates other legitimate expectations about how surrounding land will be used. This is exactly why we have zoning, and why special exemptions should be denied when they disrupt the rights of others. So respectfully, I urge the board to reject the idea that one person's idea of property rights can override a whole neighborhood's way of life. My rights as a homeowner to privacy, safety, property value, and quiet enjoyment. They do not stop at my fence line. So please uphold your legal duty that we have entrusted you with and vote no to this special exception. Thank you.
Thank you. Cassie will be up now. Daniel Straka, you'll be next.
Good evening, members. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Cassie Tolson, and I live at 8931 West 46, State Road 46. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight. I am to start by saying that I am a resident of this county, a homeowner, and more importantly, a mother of 3 young children. Recently, my husband and I moved to Decatur, we moved with the deliberate decision to move away from the city of Indianapolis and move out to the country. We wanted our children to grow up with space to run, with fresh air, to breathe, and a real connection to the land. The kind of childhood you just can't find anymore. We bought our home surrounded by a beautiful farmland on all 3 sides. And while we do not own these surrounding fields, we live right next to them. Every day, we look out of our windows and we see open sky, tractors working the ground, and deer crossing the fields, and sunsets. Those are our favorites. But now, all of that is at risk. Every one of those surrounding parcels, the very land my home depends on for its peace, its character, and its value, is being considered for industrial scale solar development. All the while, landowners of those farms have every right to consider what they need to do with their property, but I must ask, what about mine? What rights do I have as the person who will be directly and permanently affected by these decisions? My children will no longer grow up in a rural setting if this goes forward. They'll be surrounded not by open fields, but wildlife, or not by open fields and wildlife, but by the perimeter fencing, gravel roads, transformers, and rows upon metal and the glass. We're not talking about something temporary. We're talking about 30 to 40 years minimum. That is my children's entire childhood and well into their adulthood. No one came to my door to ask how this would impact my life. No one asked if I wanted to spend the next 4 decades looking out at a utility scale facility. And no one seems to be asking how this affects property rights for those of us who don't get a lease check, but have to live with the consequences. I'm not anti-renewable energy. I'm not against the farmers making ends meet, but I am asking the board to consider this. Where is the line between property rights and property harm? Because what's being proposed around me doesn't just change the use of a field. It changes the entire character of my home. It erodes the promise we bought back. It erodes the promise we bought into when we chose this life. It takes something away from my family that we will never get back. As a mother, I want to protect the home and lifestyle I've worked so hard to give to my children, and as a homeowner, preserve the value and integrity of our property. As a neighbor, I'm asking you to remember that zoning exists to protect everyone, not just those with biggest contracts. Please do not overlook families like mine. Thank you guys so much for your time and attention and your service to this community.
Thank you, Cassie. Daniel will be up. Jim Moore, you're next.
Dan Straka with the Land and Liberty Coalition. We're a project of the Conservative Energy Network. We're a grassroots organization that supports farmers and landowners who wish to use their land as they please. In this case, it would be for a solar field. You know, I normally don't show up to meetings like these. My organization has traveled around 80 of the 92 counties. And to be clear, there are not 72 moratoriums currently active. There's probably more like 20 or so around the state, but there are quite a few. I normally don't show up with a loss of words, and I'm kind of at that right now. You know, we do talk about a lot about private property rights and land use, and that's kind of where they intersect here in the BZA. You know, I just want to say that the farmers and landowners in Decatur County, whether it be for Cobia Solar or any other solar project or any other project for that matter, not even related to energy, should be reasonably allowed to use their land as they please. I believe that that is a fundamental right. In fact, the founders of our country believed that it was a fundamental right. The original Declaration believed in the rights of property rather than, was it life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness now? It was life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. So, yes, I do understand that some people, they don't get to look at the farm fields anymore that they live next to. You know, I have a coworker in one of our other states that talks about the aquarium lovers that like to look at the farm fields that moved in maybe from out of state or out of town from a big city, wanted a rural life so they could look at farmers work in the fields. Well, these farmers want to use their land to better their lives and to provide a living for their family. And, you know, I would just say that I believe Decatur County is a good county. I believe that the people here, all the people here that are against or for solar, will get past this. They'll go back to being neighbors and being the good people that I know that they are and that they know that they are. But I just urge you to consider the landowners who have made a financial decision for the betterment of their lives to lease their land for a solar development. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Daniel. Jim, you'll be up. Following Jim will be Teresa Hall.
Thank you. My name is Jim Moore. I reside and I am a property owner in Decatur County. I'm here to support property rights and protect property for the generations to come. This is not speculation. This actually happened. This spring, the April storms dismantled our private 60 solar panel array, twisting and shattering them, totaling the pickup and damage to our home. We didn't have a tornado touchdown, but I believe we were in the same path as a tornado that touched down in Bartholomew County. I have in this jar a small piece of the damaged solar panel submerged in distilled water. This is so you can get a visual of what actually happened and not just speculation. As you can see, the amount of debris floating around in the water and the glass crystals in the bottom, I assure you it all came from the small piece of solar panel. We all know how important earthworms are to the soil health, and imagine you're an earthworm trying to navigate through the glass. Now you can imagine what would have looked like in Bartholomew County had that been the case. This too actually happened, and it continues to happen. I have a niece and her husband that reside at their home located in Shelby County, aka Morristown, that is surrounded by solar fields. Since the construction of the solar, their property has experienced flooding, without a doubt putting a burden on them and affecting their property. Elon Musk has been quoted to say that the future of solar panels will be twice as powerful and half the size, using a smaller footprint. I can say that it has already happened since we first installed our private array 3 short years ago. Panels purchased today are already more powerful and they cost less than their predecessors. I want to conclude with that. I respect my colleagues in agriculture and my friends and neighbors, and I fully understand why they would want to take advantage of this opportunity. And I want to thank the board members for the time and appreciate what they are to do. As a citizen and a property owner of Decatur County, it is my personal experience with solar that is not a reliable source of energy for our future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Teresa Hall, you'll be up next. Elaine Sebastian will follow Teresa.
I don't know if I'm tall enough for this one, but we'll give it a try. So my name is Teresa Hull. I am a resident of Decatur County, and I am also a licensed real estate broker in the state of Indiana. I want to refute a few of the things that were said by the attorney from Fort Wayne, not from Decatur County, from Fort Wayne, that was hired for his opinion. There is a housing shortage in Decatur County. In the last 5 years, my home has nearly doubled in property assessment value, meaning my taxes have gone up, and that assessment is based on a fair market value of my home. My value isn't going to drop below that simply because there are panels around me. My ability to sell my home as a realtor is not necessarily going to go down because there's a housing shortage in this county. Just because there are solar panels, which my house will be surrounded by, I can't go on those lands and let my kids or my animals or my grandkids run in somebody's private land. That is their choice, what they're doing with it. If they want to do a pig farm, I'm not going to like the smell, and I'm going to have a harder time selling my house. But when it comes down to it, this is a seller's market, and people want to live here. My house is going to sell, and likely it's going to sell for at least that assessed value, which is nearly double what it was 5 years ago. The state of Indiana has now passed a property tax relief bill, and that is cutting the county's tax revenue. This is an opportunity for the county to retrieve that is lost and to overcome the barrier of not having enough money to provide services in our county. I am asking you, as a landowner that is adjacent and surrounded by where these panels are going to go, to allow my property to thrive in this county, because people want to be where there's progression, not where we do things the way we've always done. And I'll leave you with an old adage: if you always do what you've always done, you always get what you've always got. And Decatur County is broke. Thank you.
I'm Elaine Sebastian. I live at 7369 West County Road, 300 South. This field is right next door to my home. I have 5 acres, a barn, a nice home, and you can't tell me if they put a solar farm right there, then my house is going to go up in value. And this is my daughter and son's inheritance. And if that goes in, that's going to be, I already live across from Hillbilly Corner. That's enough right there to bring the value down. But now I'm faced with this. And I don't want all the transformers and all the, I get water all the time off that field. My backyard is flooded every time it rains really hard. And I just want you to vote no, because I am right next to it. And I don't feel like it should be put on me. And that is a small field. Troy Rieger owns it. So that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Elaine.
Yep.
That concludes our list of folks that signed up to speak tonight. At this moment, we'll take let's take a 5-minute recess as we transition from public comment section into the final rebuttal. And so let's return back here and be ready to roll in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Let's get back to our chairs when you're ready here.
You guys ready to roll? I can just put it on the floor.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, great. We're going to continue with the meeting now. Now is time for rebuttal from the petitioner.
Yes, good evening and thank you. Wayne DeLong, we've chatted a few times here with Donnie Castro, members of the team. We appreciate everybody's involvement and the time that's been invested. It's been certainly a year since this petition was filed, and we thank you for the time that you've invested over the months that we've been chatting. So with that, certainly we'll turn first to Mr. Donnie Castro, Vice President of Development with GNX Solar, to speak to a few topics.
Thank you very much, members of BZA, Decatur County. Thank you for having me here tonight. I appreciate the opportunity. One of the tasks assigned to local government is to find opportunities for financial investment and development for their community. And I believe we have an exceptional example of that here with you tonight. Mr. Kuchme brought up some points from previous cases. It's important to note that every applicant before a BZA must be evaluated on its own merits and on its own records. So every opinion deserves the right to be heard and respected, but with a project of this magnitude, personal anecdotes and personal experiences cannot carry the same weight as research studies conducted by people who study a particular area of expertise, often for 20 years, basing their research on the backs of all the people who researched the topic before them. Many of the concerns I've heard tonight from citizens of this county, threatened and endangered species, erosion, runoff, toxicity, all of these things have been studied at length by experts in their field. The personal experience and opinions of someone of what has happened with them or what they may believe to have happened cannot be applied across this whole project with the same magnitude as research, data-driven scientific research. So what I'm asking you to do tonight is to consider the facts of this petition in front of you. A third-party independent reviewer estimated that this project will generate $75 million in taxable revenue to this county. The consultant hired by the county, Baker Tilly, confirmed those estimations. On Monday, we executed an economic development agreement with your county commissioners. That solidifies $16.5 million in economic development payments for the county. Those are not tax dollars that have to be distributed through your tax base. That is direct money going to the county. Someone earlier mentioned SEA 1, new legislation here in the state of Indiana. That allows a solar project to depreciate its equipment to zero. That is good for solar developers. That is less we have to carry on our books. But what did we do in our economic development agreement but guarantee to maintain a 30% floor? So we are going above and beyond what the law requires because we believe in paying our fair share to the community. So when that depreciation level falls to 5% over 5 or 6 years, we will still be paying that 30% number. Again, that is not money that has to go through your tax laws. That is money paid directly to the county. And so if you look at that financial package, and then you compare it to the impact on your community. I heard that there was a concern about traffic. During construction of the first 2 years, there will be traffic. We are nearly finalized in a road use agreement with your county where we say exactly what roads we're going to use. We take a video, LiDAR, and photography survey of those roads, and then after construction, the entire project will have anywhere from 4 to 8 full-time employees. So that's 4 to 8 additional cars for 5,000 acres, excuse me. We will not be draining on your emergency services any more than any agricultural use. But in fact, we are paying money into your emergency services to give them additional training and additional materials. The amount of water that this project uses is negligible. We don't contribute to your sewer systems. We don't drain on your electricity. We don't drain your school resources. We don't create odors. And outside the project fence, we create no sounds. This is a dual use of land. We will continue to use it for agricultural benefits, including sheep grazing. We're open to other ideas of agrivoltaics, of using bees, and we're going to have a pollinator seed plan. I hear a lot about protecting Indiana farmland. Well, right now, Indiana gets about 45% of their energy from coal. Gets another 40% of energy from natural gas. If we don't start turning to renewable sources, that's 85% of our electricity that we get from something that we know puts mercury in our soils, puts nitrogen oxide in our air, puts sulfur dioxide in our water, heavy metals through all three. AI is about to cause the biggest surge in electricity demand this country has ever seen. If we don't start turning to renewables, we're just going to continue to pollute the land that we care about. And once we're done, we're going to take it away. We will remove the entirety of the solar project at no cost to the county. All the while paying landowners of the project millions of dollars a year in rent payments that will invariably, some of it, will be reinvested in the local community. We have executed the EDA. We are very close on a road use agreement, a decommissioning agreement, and we went above and beyond and created a master agricultural preservation agreement and a emergency response agreement, all for the betterment of the county. If you look at the disparity of the factual, data-driven benefits of this project versus the hypothetical potential risks, the difference is enormous. I simply ask you to weigh those things with an objective mind. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Donnie. Now introducing Mr. Dave Hall with Integra Realty Resources. Dave is going to speak to property valuation, and as we start to get more analysis into the individual comments that were made this evening.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is David Hall. I'm a licensed commercial real estate appraiser in the state of Indiana. My firm, Integra, is based here in Indiana. I've been appraising Indiana properties here in the state for approximately 20 years, including some properties here in this county. And I would also just note that I did inspect the site as part of my assignment. I know there's some testimony tonight about the Kirkland report, and I think it's really important to maybe give that a little context. So what I'd like to do is read from the very first page under the heading conclusion, and it's the very first sentence. And I think it's really important to listen to this sentence all the way through, every word. So I'll just read it for the record. According to Mr. Kirkland, the matched pair analysis shows no impact on home values due to abutting or adjoining a solar project, as well as no impact to abutting or adjacent vacant residential or agricultural land. And this is the last point that I think is important, where the solar project is properly screened and buffered. I think that's really important context. This particular analysis that was undertaken by Kirkland considers the scope of this project, how it is intended to be developed, buffered, and screened, and that is considered in that particular analysis and report. And then if I could, I will also just summarize our conclusions. And maybe add a note here. I think sometimes there's a misconception about real estate appraisers. There is one thing that makes our profession unique, and that is that we are required by law to be impartial, unbiased, and objective. It's not just a goal, it's a requirement. Anybody that is not risks losing their license. I take that really seriously when I take on a project. Presumably Mr. Kirkland did as well. Our conclusions were that the research presented in the Kirkland report is extensive and relevant, and the sources are credible. We did check those sources independently. The methodologies used to develop the Kirkland report are consistent with accepted practices and procedures. Number 3, independent research conducted by our office corroborates many of the Kirkland report's findings and conclusions. There are no obvious indications of bias. The Kirkland report relies on a broad range of sources, methodologies, opinions, and findings. The report does not contain any statements advocating for approval of the project. It also appears that the Kirkland report was completed in compliance with applicable portions of USPAP, that's the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice, and the Appraisal Institute's Code of Professional Ethics. Our research also indicates that the author has satisfied all applicable licensing, certification, and continuing education requirements. And then lastly, there's a certification in the Kirkland report that states, the assignment was developed independently, without bias, and without any personal interest in the proposed Cobia solar facility. Compensation for the assignment was not contingent upon developing a reported predetermined opinion or conclusion. And lastly, it was developed in compliance with USPAP, again, Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice, and the Appraisal Institute's Code of Professional Ethics. I'd be happy to answer any follow-up questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Now introducing landowner, a piece of this conversation here. Ms. Schroeder.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Brianna Schrader. I've been here before. I'm an attorney with Jansen Schrader Agricultural Law in Indianapolis. My practice is basically traveling the state on behalf of landowners, doing different projects. Sometimes it's confined feeding, sometimes it's solar. It's all kinds of other things that are all about landowner rights. Mr. Kuchme and I cross paths on the circuit, if you will, fairly frequently. And so I'm happy to be here tonight to be able to speak a little bit on behalf of the landowners on whose land we're talking about the project, right? This is the property that we're talking about tonight. So I represent the landowners, the leaseholders. I represent them here and now. They support the project. None of them regret signing up for the project. They are here and they are happy and proud to support the project, despite, you know, the last year has been a lot for them, right? They've gotten it on from neighbors and friends, and we're hopeful that a vote tonight will allow the community to come back together and move forward, right? So I've really got 3 points on behalf of the landowners. I had a professor once told me, any more than 3 points, people are probably going to forget what you say, right? So stick to 3. But they're going to be, so 3 points. First of all, and I think I probably could leave it here, right? The project complies with the ordinance. And right, that's what it's all about, okay, right? Decatur County has already set forth what it needs to see in a solar project to approve that project. The ordinance sets out certain requirements for these projects. What we've heard tonight and at the earlier meetings is evidence establishing that the Cobia project meets and exceeds every single one of those requirements. The landowners have supported the project throughout this lengthy process. They've patiently attended meetings as you all have. They've voiced their support at hearings like this one, all in reliance and with the confidence and the expectation that the county will look at the zoning ordinance, will look at the evidence of this project, acknowledge that the project complies with the Decatur County ordinance, and approve the special exception. It's important to point out that this BZA is not bound by a BZA decision on a different project. It is not a precedential decision. Think about how much easier my job would be if that was the case. It would put us out of work. If I could approve one confined feeding operation, then automatically you have to approve every one I ever bring up, regardless of where it is, what it is, how it's built. I would be out of a job, right? That's not how it works. So it is important that this BZA consider this project on its merits, regardless of a decision a couple years ago, a couple decades ago, or perhaps regardless of a decision you may make in the future. This project gets judged on its merits with this ordinance. Number two, the landowner's ability to farm their private property, that's in a way that aligns with their family's values. Now, I grew up on a farm. I do understand people feel invested. They feel like they have bought into living next to a cornfield. I get it, right? Indiana summers with fireflies, catching them, putting them in jars, getting yelled at by your parents for doing that. I live that. I get that. However, there's not a promise that that cornfield will exist tomorrow. And unless I buy that cornfield, I can't make you put corn in it or make you put soybeans in it. So I understand the feeling that you are invested in someone else's land. I believe someone mentioned the aquarium idea. I'd never heard of that, but I like to look at certain things in my neighbor's yard, but I can't make them keep their rose bush because I think it's pretty, right? That's not how private property works. And as we've talked about in the past, and everybody tonight, I think everybody, maybe the only thing we all agree on is that private property rights are important, right? We can have a discussion about how they shift and where they start and stop. I hear that. These farm families, after soul searching and extensive analysis, voluntarily decided, they weren't tricked into it, suggesting that they were somehow brainwashed into this, undermines the intelligence that these folks have and the thought they've put into this. They've decided to put some of their land into this dual use, this agrivoltaic project, which gives them really the best chance to keep their farm in the family, to be able to invest in equipment and other inputs necessary for a modern farm. They're diversifying their income and their farming practices on their own private property to meet modern demand. That is families, farms, and futures, right? That leads me really to my final point, and that is that these landowners know that this project, this specific project, gives their land a chance to rest and to remain agriculturally productive while the county and they get paid. There's a reason they selected the Genex Cobia project for their farmland. It proposes cutting-edge combination of traditional agriculture along with local domestic energy production. That means the land, which has been used for years to grow corn and soybeans, will be planted with cover crops, pollinator plants, and it will rest really from traditional agricultural practices. Instead, right, we'll have sheep which will graze and fertilize the land. Of course, in the meantime, the county is going to receive extensive payments. So this project creates essentially a private CRP program for this ground, freezing it in time, not paving over it for a data center or for a warehouse or for a J.C. Penney's, but rather freezing it in time so that it will be returned to agricultural use. Because by its terms, I can tell you, I've seen it. My clients signed contracts that are temporary. They are not permanent. The project will be removed. It will not be paved over, and it will continue to be used as agriculture in the meantime. So, this is really a once-in-a-generation opportunity for this land, for the counties. These landowners, I promise, would not volunteer their multi-generational farms to be destroyed or consumed by something else. They are using this project to protect their farmland into the future. So in closing, really, this is an investment in agriculture. It looks a little different. No, we cannot go back to 2017. That's not how time works. But it is the result of a deliberate and careful decision-making by these landowners, and it's going to protect this agricultural ground for their family and for the county for decades to come. Thank you. I'm going to hand it over to Wayne, I believe, and then Gordon.
Thank you. Now introducing Mr. Gordon Smiley.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for having this evening. I'm going to take my hat off this evening as a landowner only and also be a citizen in these comments that I'd like to make this evening. The fact that these dollars and cents, this averages out to about $2.5 million a year over the term of this 30 years that this is proposal, is an immense amount of money that our county can be used in a financial to help infrastructure and things going down the road. I think one of the things that we forget about all the work that you folks have done here is all the work that the County Council and the commissioners have done with COBIA over the last months to put this economic development plan together. We wouldn't be here this evening and you say the economic development plan, you get the cart before the horse. No, the fact is you got to do all these things side by side, and my compliments to them for that. One of the things on your BZA scoring thing is they talk about morals, the moral effect. Well, I think you should look at the fact that COBIA is willing to keep the 30% level of the property tax values as a statement of high morals on behalf of COBIA towards our county citizens. When you have had a proposal go above and beyond its requirements of the law is very positive. I believe positive points for moral values on your scoring sheet should be given to COBIA. Monday night's commissioners meetings, it was stated that the county has gone and done everything on their end that they could possibly do to be fully protected in these agreements. Another thing that all the people behind the scenes have done to get to this point. In closing, I'd like to quote the attorney, Hannah, from Monday night's meeting at the commissioners meeting this past Monday, when she was asked how this proposal looked to her, and she has worked with many other counties and many other things. Her comments, quote, "This is a very generous and good offer for the county." On behalf of, as a citizen of Decatur County, I think this project should be approved for the financial benefit for the entire citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. So we have a few pieces of material to pass out this evening. None of this is new to the public file. This is capturing this all for your record, even though it's all within the file already. In the binders that Mr. Newman is bringing to you, or in the assemblage of paperwork there, first is the listing of community engagement activities, which we've been in the county working for 4 years on this particular project. Certainly the Indiana team that's here in this state, we've had a team in this state for about the same amount of time. Probably the person who's been on the team the longest and may have been an Indiana resident the longest is me, on the team for 3 years or so, but certainly an Indiana resident since 1983, give or take. Second piece within your binder, certainly all of the agreements. And again, this is not new information for the discussion this evening. This is for your reference and record. These are agreements, be it decommissioning, the road use, master ag, fire safety, and the economic development agreement as been mentioned. The agreements that you may have seen a week ago, of course, these documents have advanced a little bit. The road use, decommissioning, I would say are about 95% ready to go. The other ones, the county still has the pen on, if you will, but definitely working hard and with great diligence to get those wrapped up. I believe the EDA speaks to 30 days to wrap up the facilities maintenance, fire safety, and master ags. So a little bit of time, but certainly that's the structure of the document. Certainly the findings of fact that are referenced this evening obviously touched upon the financial piece. That's important. One, it was mentioned last month, but secondarily, your finding number one speaks to the morals and safety, welfare, general welfare of the community. Financial aptitude is associated with welfare. This project is contributing to that. Yeah, please. Yeah. Also handing out here, again, not new information. I wanted to assemble for your record is the 250 letters of support that, again, are in the file, but wanted to capture them here for the record. I think that speaks volumes to this community's interest. I mean, certainly this room speaks volumes to the community's interest in this project, but there is a voice that also supports this project more than the voices that speak with the petition and or the folks that you heard from this evening that spoke in favor of the project. Certainly SEA 1 is impactful as referenced. We don't need to get into that, but certainly that tab 2 for your reference is the presentation offered by Baker Tilly at the last commissioners meeting. Again, that was played publicly, not new information. Certainly there for your reference and record. I'm pausing here. Debbie, how do I activate the screen?
Dave.
Okay. We're fine. I mean, I
don't know if he's looking on it.
Certainly not looking right this minute. We need the screen, but certainly we can keep going here. Certainly the findings of fact, like we mentioned, speak to the welfare component, as I mentioned, the financial offer that ties to that. Other items, as mentioned this evening, certainly Mr. Kuchme outlined many for you. Donnie has spoken to the topic of traffic. You know, this proposal substantially interfering with the comprehensive plan. Certainly we would take the position, and we try to demonstrate in our findings, and we believe we do that successfully, that this project, with its dual use of agricultural agrivoltaics, we're not consuming land. We're working with a land use that's in concert with the utility scale solar array that we are proposing. There was a comment related to the stability related to taxes. The one comment I would point to a slide that we offered, Kelly School of Business put this together. We put it on the screen for you last time. It spoke to a majority of, I would say, Indiana's counties losing population. Population is your number one source of property tax, or you're paying into your system. So you have already a drop in the SEA 1 with that structure, as well as the drop in population. So it would be a misrepresentation to talk about the stability of taxation, how there's a one-for-one swap, because there's a lot of variables, but the other variables were mentioned in the presentation. Certainly, wildlife, preservation of wildlife corridors, the fence, other items that were mentioned, we would focus on that here with the presentation. Certainly, your ordinance mandates preservation and creation of wildlife habitat. This particular project, speaking to the merits that are different than maybe another project you've discussed, brings forward restorative agriculture, restorative habitat. Creating, with the 77 miles of fence row that has been mentioned, is a direct contribution to creating the wildlife habitat, the very thing that your ordinance looks to see. And certainly the comments regarding the properly screened and sited project. That is paramount to what Cobia believes it needs to accomplish. And unfortunately, it looks like we're unable to conquer the video delay. But what we would feature for you here is an illustration of, because a picture speaks 1,000 words, and we would like to provide that for you. Okay. But while we pause to work out the technical issues here, what questions may we answer this evening?
While we work on that, I've got a question, several, but in the Baker-Tilly report and amongst all the financial information that we've tried to digest, part of the education process, we've learned that the cost of the panels, to produce the panels, to install the panels, has greatly reduced over time. Understanding that we are multiple years out, if this project were to be approved, those panels would continue to decline in value, in price, in cost, and assessment, if that's the correct way of saying it. Have those reductions in the cost of those panels been factored into the financial benefits to the county? Or is those financial benefits relative to today's price?
The easiest way to answer that question is yes, as the financial package that's in front of you estimates it's a 75% number, if you will. So everything has a cushion. This project has been estimated to be a $900 million investment, $1 billion investment. And so to cushion and prepare for that, the financial offer has been structured at about just south of 700 million. So maybe, Matt, there's another way to answer that, but I might give you the data that you're looking for.
Yeah, just to reiterate the fact that we presented numbers to the county, and the economic development agreement is based on that estimation. But as Wayne alluded to, it is a reduction of what we see as the costs continue to go down.
Okay, so you factored that
Yes.
into the numbers that you presented to the county?
Yes.
Okay.
One thing I'll add, I think will bear on the reason you asked the question, but based on the economic structure that's put in place in the EDA, the agreement contemplates that those will become minimum investment amounts, and so it contemplates a tax abatement will be applied for with the council, which would lead to SB1 forms being created, creating like a minimum investment. So that would be like a minimum threshold that the project will be committed to and bound by under that economic structure, if that makes sense.
That helps, thank you.
Yeah.
One additional point I'd like to add there is that the way the economic development agreement was structured, so we evaluated the project, I believe, $687 million. For every $1 million that we go above that, the county benefits an additional $23,810. So if we end up spending more than that, the amount of economic development will grow.
Okay, thank you. Continue on.
Okay, we'll continue. This is, I would say, our video illustration of the project. This video is several minutes long. We certainly don't have to entertain all of it, but you are considering a 7,000-acre project with 4 distinct areas, and I believe this video provides that data point for your consideration. Again, thank you for viewing our presentation. Specifically, we know it's a little long, but it's, again, a big project. And the purpose of that is to illustrate what, as Mr. Hall indicated, the proper screening and buffering. And certainly there's room for additional plants. It's getting a little tight, 22,000 trees. Room for more, but it is a large effort to screen a project properly, and that's been the project's goal since day one. So just sharing that, if you're going to appreciate your time. Certainly any additional comments from the team?
Do you have any additional questions for us?
To that video, it's been my experience in traveling to some of these sites that are existing. The vegetative cover looks nothing like that. Do you have a time frame on what that looks like? Is there a time frame designed in that video? Is that year 1? Is that year 30?
No, I would
Can you
say,
put a time frame to
I
that
would
based
say-
on the size of those trees and the screening?
I would say 5 to 7 years out. I mean, the trees go in at 4 to 6 feet at time of planting. Certainly larger trees can be provided, but also we're focused on the health of the tree. Our landscape architect is here in the room this evening. But yes, I mean, to render that video, it's certainly not anything to hide. I mean, it is a 5 to 7 year
I
horizon.
assumed that. I just wanted
Yes.
to put a time frame
Certainly.
to those visuals.
Yes, understood. Very, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to offer, hearing the reaction from the room, I can understand that to some level of degree. I've driven past solar fields where developers did not care about that kind of thing. But judging, again, every solar project as the same is not a fair indication of the type of developer we are. And as illustrated by our commitment to the 30% floor, the master agricultural agreement, we do things a lot different than most of the other people in our space.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I think at this time that concludes your rebuttal. I think now's a great opportunity for the board to dive into any questions on the project. So we'll open it to the board for questions.
The first question I have, hypothetical, but in the event that Gen X and Cobia would file for bankruptcy at any point during this project, what does that look like for the leaseholders as well as the residents of the county?
Yeah, sure. Well, there are many different factors to that, but most of that is encompassed in our decommissioning bond, our decommissioning agreement that we'll execute with the county. The most important part of that is that a surety bond worth 150% of the value as estimated by a third-party professional engineer. That will be in place with the county before one piling goes in, before one screw is attached. That will be in place and has to be maintained, and every 5 years the value is reassessed. Within 60 days of its expiration, we have to provide proof that it has been renewed, and if at that time it falls within that 60-day window that it has not been renewed, there are legal actions that the county can take to access that money. But the most important fact of that is all the money to clean up everything is in place in a surety bond with the county before any construction happens. Any raising of the ground, any fence posts, anything.
And then to add on to that, how does the current administration and its energy policies affect the funding of this project going forward?
That's a great question. You're seeing that SEA 1 being somewhat of an example of that. You're seeing a reduction in tax credits. We have made no secret that we are not the long-term owner-operator of that project. That is not our business model. But long-term owner-operators are now developing those additional costs or loss of tax credits into their business model. So when they assume responsibility for the project, they will have calculated that out. Anything to add there?
So to that, since you brought that up, that your intent is to develop and sell this project, at what stage of development do you typically put these things on the market? Is it completion of construction? Is it prior to construction? I guess, what is your timeline as far as when your exit point is?
I wish that I had a straightforward answer for you, but we have sold them before permitting, post-permitting. We've never taken a project into construction. Quite frankly, we don't have the team to do that. What typically happens when a long-term owner-operator purchases the project from us, they then hire us under a development services agreement, as we have the relationships with the community. So we help with that transition, and we'll stay on as long as that long-term owner-operator needs us to. But I think an important point is the transferability of all the agreements. All the agreements are orchestrated in a way that anyone who chooses to buy this project knows these are the rules of the game. You have to abide by this master agricultural agreement. You have to abide by this economic development agreement. You have to abide by the decommissioning agreement. And that is all, and Matt can speak to that if necessary, but that is all legally bound.
And those agreements being transferred to any private or public utility that would be a purchaser of this facility?
Yeah, the economic development agreement would travel on.
Yes.
As well as the other agreements, yes. Which the economic development agreement is bound by the other agreements, correct?
Correct. The economic development agreement serves as the mother agreement, if you will. And if there were any future owner of the project would be bound by all of those agreements as a package and all of the commitments and requirements within those agreements. And there's no exceptions to that.
Is the cover page or I know I've seen a summary table of the economic development agreement. Is it in the packet easily, quickly?
Yeah, it's, so the blue packet, is it covered with blue?
Yep.
And the reason we did that is these agreements, some of these agreements changed in the last few days.
Yep.
So when we submitted them late last week, they've changed. So it's functionally the same packet, other than we put blue so you could keep them separate. But yeah, the economic development agreement is tab 4.
Thank you very much. I'll come back to that.
Yep.
And you may be looking for the table in Baker Tilly's presentation, which is at tab 2, maybe 6 or so pages in.
That's the tab I'm looking for. Thank you.
So to clarify a few details on the EDA, the first payment the county receives is year 0, right? It is the first year that the first phase is operationally outputting energy, correct? That is roughly 1 to 2 years from start of construction to operational, is that correct?
Yeah, I have to clarify. It may be that the first payment is due in the year before COD.
I believe it is. It would be based upon the assessment.
Yeah, cool. Let me look and answer that real quick for you.
I guess my follow-up question to that, though, really is, from the time of construction beginning until that first payment arrives, which my reading through this material was after operational, what level of expenses will the county incur? And has any of those estimates been given to the county to work into any budgets between that time and that first payment?
So at this moment, there is already a standing letter, a side letter that was executed in October of last year, which pledges $95,000 in reimbursement for expenses. Thus far, the county has pulled about $37,000, $42,000 against that letter. And so that's one illustration of the project making, assisting with expenses that are incurred. Certainly there could be other expenses, including inspections, that exceed that agreement. Certainly if that's a conversation that could happen, we're happy to do that. But yeah, that's the $95,000 is the standing line item currently.
So any road damage done prior to payments will be covered by the county or by GNX? Any inspections, which reading through this, there appears to be several, those expenses will be covered where?
So I think on road use, the road use bond, that will cover any road repairs that are necessary will have to be in place before the start of construction. So,
Okay.
so for that one, yeah. That's for road use, yeah, the road use bond will be in place.
And in the road use agreement, obviously, we take the survey before we start construction, and then we take a survey after construction is complete, and then we make a repair to equal or better. If there is any road damage that happens during construction that needs immediate responses, there is a mechanism in the road use agreement to get that fixed now, as opposed to once construction is completion.
And that in itself is the root of my question.
Yes.
I understand once operational,
right,
you'll take the pre-survey, you'll repair the road to that or better after construction. My fear is that time period, 1-2 years in between, is the county stuck with that bill to repair it? Are the community residents going to have to navigate tough roads in the meantime? What does that look like?
The mechanism is in place that if we have identified that the county brings it to our attention and then we repair it. If a road becomes impassable, say, okay, yeah. And then to answer your first question, the first EDA payment comes 60 days after commercial operation date. So commercial operation date is when electrons are put on the grid.
That's the way I understood it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I've got a bar graph in front of me here for the 30-year projection with total economic impact between $2.5 and $3 million annually. Should an early decommission, for whatever reason, become a reality, the onset of nuclear energy or for some reason environmental impacts are found that we don't anticipate things like that. At the point that it becomes decommissioned, there would be no annual revenue to the county. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. And I understand it's projected to be 30 years, but if panel efficiency would fall off at 22, there is a decent reality that it doesn't make sense to continue making land payments for 10 years to decommission it early. Is that a potential outcome?
Well, what typically happens in a solar field, I mean, how many solar modules are in this array? 1.7 million modules, different modules, or solar panels.
Mhm.
So as they decline in efficiency, some will age faster than others.
Sure.
Typically, long-term owner-operators replace those as they go along.
Sure.
Right? And so we've negotiated in our economic development agreement. There's also something called repowering. So if it's a large area of panels that have gone out, and those are going to be then replaced by the long-term owner-operator, we would then enter into a second economic development agreement for that economic spend. But typically, you'll see that they'll replace them as they go out one at a time.
Yeah, and then in years 2 to 12, that makes all kind of sense. But
Right.
if there are, how many panels potentially?
1.7 million.
If there are 1.7 million at year 20 that are, and we don't know a lot about this technology at 20 some years of age, right? I mean, if
The earliest versions in California were dispensed in the 70s, and we regularly see those lasting 30 to 40 years.
Sure.
And the technology has only improved. I mean, the important factor to consider is at that point, 22 to 25 years, this is more or less free money for the long-term owner-operator. They've worked out exactly how it is to operate. They've got it very streamlined. Things are running largely by themselves.
Sure.
So they have an economic interest in keeping it going for as long as possible.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Does the ownership ever change hands more than once? Like you sell, you have an investor, can it change hands again after that?
It can. Yeah, we don't have any control over what happens. That's not something that we've seen, but it can happen. I mean, it's possible. But again, the transferability is still in place, regardless of how many times the project could get sold.
Thank you.
Sure.
I want to talk a little bit about the decommissioning process since you brought that up. Very rarely do the first thing of anything go right? We learn from that experience, move on, implement those changes, so forth, so on. Has there been a site decommissioned to date? If so, how has that gone?
By any of our long-term partners?
Do you have any experience with a site that's decommissioned?
No.
Do you have any record of a site that's been decommissioned or any knowledge of a site?
Well, quite frankly, there are not utility scale solar projects that have aged to the point of decommissioning. There are larger projects in California that have aged. And, when those were decommissioned, some back in 2010, in the 2010s, the recycling industry was not robust. So there was a lot of waste generated. That has completely changed. Modules are now being manufactured with the idea of the glass and aluminum at the end of a solar panel's life cycle to be reincorporated into another solar panel.
So specifically, the project we're speaking on today, what is the intent once decommission happens to those panels? Does the decommission agreement define specifically what happens and what the requirements are to those panels and to all that material?
Yeah, I believe that I need to look, but I believe the agreement does contemplate use of salvage value. And so normally the landowners or the project owner or the county will be incentivized to kind of maximize the value you can return from the salvage value.
But it doesn't require recycling. Is that correct?
I would need to look to be sure.
Yeah, I don't believe it requires it, but there's a lot of monetary value. I mean, the steel.
Rightfully so.
Yes.
Yep, absolutely, I understand that. But from a security standpoint from the county, so if those panels material are opted to a landfill, where would that landfill? Is that a special landfill? Is that a local landfill? What would that look like?
I'm not entirely sure on that process, but
Okay.
if there is an assurity of reaching some level of recyclability of the project, if that's something that the county is interested in pursuing, we're open to that conversation.
Did I understand right that there's monetary value in those boards?
Yes. Glass, aluminum.
At the last presentation, it was my understanding by the other petitioners that it was just a cheaper alternative to send them to a landfill than what it was actually more expensive to recycle. Was what we were told that first time. I'm not saying that things haven't changed, but at that point we requested that they go to a recycle option as opposed to a landfill. But when that was presented, it was their thought that a landfill was just happened to be less expensive than recycling. But
I don't know how long ago that was, and invariably some of it will end up in a landfill. But I would also imagine that some of it would end up being recycled. The solar panel recycling market has changed dramatically in the last 10 years.
okay. Are you okay if that would be a condition that this county asks that they not end up in a local landfill, that they go through a recycling process as opposed to end up here,
Yes.
that you're
Yep.
okay with that. Thank you.
Sure.
So there's been a lot of discussion about decommissioning, returning the land back to agriculture. The question I have in reading through a lot of this material, it's really hard to predict what land looks like in 40 years. It's hard to remember what it looked like in 40 years, and I understand the pre-survey construction. A lot of the language I felt was subjective.
Okay.
I felt that, who determines what appropriate is, right? Your definition and mine may be different. I guess the real question I have to that statement, who determines that? Is that the landowner? Is that the county? And then what is the penalty if it is not acceptable?
Are you referring to the master agricultural agreement?
At this point, I'm referring to the, I think that there's some language in that, but I think
There
that
is.
decommissioning as well.
Mhm.
A lot has been discussed about returning that land to agriculture at the completion of this facility. That's where acceptable means different things to different people.
Right.
Who determines that? And then what is the penalty if it is not acceptable?
Yeah, I believe there is a mutual agreement between landowner and the long-term owner operator.
So we're talking about the decommissioning agreement, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that would be a process between the county and the project at that time. And I believe that I'll need to confirm, I can do that right now, that the decommissioning agreement will have some ability of the county to approve or sign off on decommissioning and whether it's acceptable. So I believe there is a process, and I can verify that now, and if it's not in there, I think the project, we could certainly add it. I'll let Wayne and Donnie clarify or commit to that if they'd like, but while I check.
Yeah, we just got some.
Donnie, are you comfortable committing to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I would state that for the record.
Yeah, we will clearly state for the record that we will establish as a condition a mechanism to define that definition of acceptable.
To clarify, that's your interest, that the county has some ability to control and say decommissioning is satisfied. That's the clarification you're seeking?
My clarification is, yes, who defines acceptable?
Yeah. So I don't believe it's unilateral by the project. It would require input from the county. To the extent that's not there, I think the project's willing to commit.
Absolutely.
As a condition. So whether we characterize that as a subsequent amendment to this, revision to this agreement or a condition, I think the project's comfortable either way.
So I understand those agreements aren't finalized yet, and there's a time frame post, if this were to be approved to complete those. Part of that is adding language into what is the penalty or what is the penalty to a non-conforming acceptance to those conditions.
Sure, absolutely.
The road use agreement, as I understand it, is primarily designed for the commissioning process, correct? So there would be video taken, LiDAR things that assess the value of the roads, and then those are restored 2 years down the road or something like that. In theory, at the end of this, should these decide to be decommissioned in 30 years, would there be a similar, or is there a process in place for the decommissioning process? I mean, all those goods would be coming back out, right?
Yeah, so you're talking about road use during decommissioning?
Yeah, road restoration, yes, during
Yeah,
decommissioning.
I'd need to look, I'm not sure there's kind of standalone provisions that contemplate that. It would just be sort of wrapped into the comprehensive decommissioning process.
Okay.
But I think it's another one, the project I wouldn't expect will have any problem with that.
Okay.
As a condition or an amendment or revision to these agreements. Anything else on that?
No, I don't have any.
Okay. And I would also point out, I think, from kind of a county permitting standpoint, I think the county would likely have some, without an agreement or commitment, the county would have some ability during that process, because a contractor that's going to perform the decommissioning is likely going to have to pull road permits and other things, hauling permits. And so that would be a kind of built-in opportunity for the county to have some control. I'm not suggesting we should not do what we just talked about, whether we render that as a condition or a commitment tonight or a revision to these agreements, I think.
Yeah.
But I just point that out.
There's just been a great deal of effort and time spent talking about hauling everything in, but not much about taking everything back out,
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, we'd be happy to commit to securing in the road use agreement or the decommissioning agreement, either one, that the restoration of the road post decommissioning.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Does the board have anything else on the decommissioning or road use? Okay.
I had one thought, and I may have missed it. The landscaping in the event, let's say, 6 months, year, 2 years, vegetation starts to die, particular trees, there's a provision for replacement.
Well, I would say at a minimum, the act of the zoning approval would require the trees that are illustrated on the site plan be maintained in perpetuity. Now, certainly if the master ag agreement has any more specific language, you'd certainly look for that right now. But as an action of the board, your approval itself of the site plan did not approve anything but trees that are healthy and moving forward in life.
So to add on to what Wayne just said, yeah, the Master Agricultural Preservation Agreement speaks to that specifically. That agreement is designed to kind of also be an agreement within agreements, so it covers different concepts in the agreement. One of them specifically that would be most relevant is Schedule 6, Visual Impact and Screening Agreement. I can look at it now, but I believe it does have kind of an annual inspection component for the county and then the ability to notify the project that there's a problem that would need fixed.
I did just want to point out that in the Master Agricultural Agreement, there is language that the project company and the landowner will have an agreement on the restoration of the land as opposed to the replacement of topsoil, the replacement of subsoil, rutting, disking, all of those things are agreed upon. And then the Decatur County Soil and Water Conservation District, their opinion shall be the final verdict.
Okay.
But we're happy to enter into any additional language that makes you comfortable with that.
Okay. So speaking to that Master Ag Preservation Agreement, and let me first say, I do believe that is well going above and beyond the scope of your responsibilities to put that in place, knowing that's important to this county. So I appreciate that, and I think the board does as well. To that, there was a Ag Impact Mitigation Agreement. I must have left that one at home, but very similar language While they're not dramatically different, they are substantially different. So can you speak to that process of how we evolved from that ag impact mitigation agreement to the master ag preservation agreement?
Yeah, so I would say as it stands now, from the project's vantage point, I think we're waiting on a red line from the county. And so that was the kind of starting point that we worked with, the master ag preservation agreement. And it was assembled from some other forms, agreements in other jurisdictions that the county directed us to. And I think the more recent version, my understanding is we may go back to something that looks more like what you're referencing. And so that process is kind of ongoing, I would say.
Okay. From your view, is there still a lot of work to do on that agreement? You gave us a 95% final on the road use and decommission. Where do you think we stand on this one?
I would say it's similar. I don't want to put words in the mouth of the county. Some of the people that have worked on it are here. But I would say 85 or 90. I think there was a big effort in the draft that's in our packet. And what comes back, I think we conceptually know what it needs to be in it. And previously the project, the county expressed some interest in shifting to the most stringent standards for whatever the applicable concept would be, and the project is committed to that. So I would say, if you force me to put a percentage, I'd call it 85 or 90 as we sit here.
That's fair. Item 2, general conditions. A says, and I quote, company can negotiate modifications from the agreement requirements. What requirements would need a modification in your view?
I'm sorry, which agreement?
So that is item 2, general conditions, sub-item A.
I think that's largely based on having the flexibility to listen to the particular landowners. And if there's something that they want to do differently, we want to give them the freedom to pursue that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does the county have any final approval or any final say in any of those modifications? There's no language to that I could identify.
Right.
If there's not,
yeah, we're happy to commit to a county approval of any negotiations between the project company and a landowner.
That could be part of the continued finalization of the agreement.
Yes. I think it was just in the spirit of having the flexibility to give landowners an option.
Mm-hmm. In this agreement, that refers to multiple inspections. In the ag impact mitigation agreement, there's a reference to a single or multiple ag inspectors being hired. There was none of that language in the agreements you placed in front of us. My question is, who within the county, while there still refers to, the Master Ag Preservation Act still refers to multiple inspections, okay? So my question is, if that's going to be our document moving forward, who within the county is expected to complete these inspections? Does that individual have the technical requirements? And do they have the time and resources needed to complete those? And maybe that's more of a county conversation.
Yeah, I think that we would just be open to finding someone that we mutually agree upon has the ability to do it effectively and the bandwidth.
switch gears just a little bit. Talk about the grazing aspect to the agreement. It does not necessarily spell out that grazing is mandatory, just that it is an option. Is that correct?
It is an option. Certainly, our sheep grazing vendor is here this evening with 5,500 acres. There is no known, could the project have capacity and appetite for that much going in at once. We've designed the project as such. We certainly get additional information presented to you here this evening. But yeah, there is a variable that you might not see all 5,500 acres and all pastures and all paddocks being leveraged. But then more traditional maintenance would need to be implemented instead.
And again, our sheep grazer consultant, Novus Ranch, is here. Correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but a big factor in that is just the availability of the number of sheep.
Yeah, we would have to scale up. You're talking on the order. Would you like me to come up here?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So when you're talking this number of acres, 5,500, you're looking, the way that we kind of work the sheep program is 365-day grazing. So they live out on the farm the whole time. And with that, we're looking at stocking densities of 2 ewes per acre. So it's like 11,000 ewes that you would need. Then, of course, in May, they would have their lambs. Then you would have almost 2 lambs per ewe. So, do the math there, almost 20,000 lambs a year. So, yeah, getting that number may take a year or 2 or 3 to do, depending on just the availability and quality of forage on the project site. Yeah, generally what we would do is like that the females stay until they get 6 or 7 years old, then they get replaced with younger females, and those stay there more or less their whole lives, and then the lambs will come off and go to market.
Paul, out of respect for the board, I think you should direct your conversations with the board.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you, yes.
Yeah. Sorry about
appreciate
that.
the question. Public comment is over now, so.
Thanks. Yeah.
So my question is this. What is the purpose of the sheep?
Well, for our family, it's what we're hoping to provide income for our family. Looking at this, there's a lot of talk about taking away good farm ground, but the agricultural policies of our country sort of set it up specifically here that we're kind of locked into corn and soybeans. It's pretty risky to do other things. And then the price of land makes it risky to go and buy that. But if you have an opportunity to get paid for a service, and then an opportunity also to grow the sheep for the maintenance, that's their number one job, is to keep the grass down. Then the number 2 job, which is a delicious job, is to go into the meat market for the lambs that are growing up. Now, who knows, with all the solar farms being built, some of those lambs will have to go to other solar farms to be lawnmowers and satisfy that first job, but there will be an increase for lambs for food.
Out of the acres, how many of these do you anticipate actually grazing? Not always have water sources, so it would be somewhat of a project just to be able to truthfully graze some of these parcels. What's the projection on that?
Well, part of the sheep grazing plan is installing paddocks and water supply, and that will be a process that will build over time.
Okay, so 5 years in, do you truly anticipate that all 5,500 acres would have sheep on them? Is that correct?
I mean, that's my hope, of course. And the plan that we put together, that GeneX requested from us, it establishes the fencing and the water infrastructure that would make that successful.
Okay, thank you.
But certainly at the end of the day, the owner-operator is going to make that type of decision. So if the board is inclined to have a commitment related to a certain percentage, we're certainly happy to entertain that. At the cost, as Paul indicated, the number one job of the sheep is mowing. So there is, a cost benefit to the mower crew versus the operation of a sheep array in the array, and that's a business decision. But again, if the board is so inclined to have a commitment, we're happy to discuss that.
I think another important factor there is giving the landowner the choice. There may be landowners who don't want sheep on their land, and we would honor that commitment to the landowner.
And so what does the maintenance look like on that piece of property?
Traditional mowing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is anybody held accountable when you bring those kind of numbers of sheep in, if there's disease, parasites, that infects existing livestock that's already in the community? Who's held accountable for that?
How you protect?
Yeah, I think once you get to this level of animals, you have to start thinking about biosecurity. That's really important. Unluckily, I guess, for the sheep industry, but luckily here, there's not a ton of sheep in the area other than what we would have, so it would be our own internal issues. Most of the diseases that we know of are only transmissible from sheep to sheep. So that would be the bigger issues, is looking at those very specific things. We have a partnership with Franklin College where they come to our farm, their pre-vet team comes to our farm, and we have now trained several students who are at Purdue University. Some are third-year vet students. So we're trying to get more kids exposed to sheep so they understand it, get excited about it, and can help us kind of create those plans as we get closer. Our bigger issues are more like internal parasites to sheep, which really aren't that's actually not a huge problem for us, but it is for some producers, the worms in the guts, and then the other things are more sort of health-related issues that don't go to other critters or even off-site. With the nature of the way that we're doing it here with an extensive program, health issues, they're much healthier than they would be in a confinement situation, particularly respiratory illnesses.
But I guess more specifically, if a landowner has livestock and it is infected by something that has been brought in, who's held accountable? Who's going to pay for that landowner's loss? Or that
So you're saying, like, if there's a neighbor that has a flock of sheep and our sheep hurt them?
Sheep, goats, cattle, anything that's transferable?
That's a great question. I'm not going to make up an answer to it. I think we would definitely be carrying a liability policy on that. We have a big insurance policy, particularly on a farm like this, for the solar panels, but also for the sheep and any impacts that we would have. So if it was clearly our fault, then we would be potentially liable for that. But I haven't run down that thought train. But I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you. Any further questions from the board?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we do want to emphasize that the scenario that was offered is if lightning struck or some other sort of calamity issue and if a tree falls across a fence, these are liability issues that a project like ours would have enormous amounts of insurance to address. We need to speak to. Yeah.
On the sheet. Good.
Well, and we were just kind of running through that. I mean, this topic comes up in every project, and this is a fence is destroyed because a tree falls over from one neighbor's property onto another, crushes the car. Who's liable? So these are routine legal issues that are conquered every day. So if the project were to have a commercially owned project, which would have an enormous amount of insurance and liability coverage, I think could easily address the challenges presented by something that you've described. But I guess I would want to emphasize the scenario is an everyday challenge for even two neighbors.
Yeah, anything further? Paul?
I don't, thank you.
Okay, I think that concludes the board's questions. Any final comments?
Thank you very much for your time. We
Okay.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Seeing no further comments from the board, I think we've exhausted our rebuttal in our public comment section. I think I'll look for a motion.
Missy, I have, I think, jotted down the conditions that we have added here at late. Do you have anything you'd like to guide us on as we make this motion, or anything further than my notes that I've added? Or would you like to hear it and then see if you want to add anything?
Well, I know that I provided you a basic template.
Yes.
Of the agreements and everything. And I know that you wanted to add a stipulation about the solar panels being recycled at the time of decommissioning.
Yes.
So any other things that the board wants added, I would just have you add those into
The motion?
the motion.
Okay.
I know some of the other things you talked about are components of some of the agreements that haven't been finalized.
Sure.
But if you want to add those in, that they be made part of that process, you can do that as well.
Fair enough, thank you.
I'll add that. Okay. Let me go through my notes real quick. Yep, I'll entertain a motion.
I will make a motion that we vote on BZA application 2024-8, GNX Solar, Cobia Solar, requesting a special exception for construction of a commercial solar energy facility pursuant to Decatur County Ordinance Article 20, Solar Energy Facilities, subject to the following agreements between the applicant and Decatur County: the Economic Development Agreement, the Road Use Agreement, I'd like to add be effective for the decommissioning as well, the Decommissioning Agreement, the Master Agricultural Preservation Agreement, Fire Safety and Emergency Response Agreement, also that at the point that solar panels are removed from service, that they be recycled, not disposed of in a landfill. Further, subject to compliance with proposed conditions and requirements contained in the tech review report dated May 28th of 2025, all provisions of the Decatur County zoning ordinance that pertain to the project and the Decatur County Stormwater Management Ordinance. That's my motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and second to vote on petition 2024-8.
You should have the voting sheets in front of you.
Before these votes are read, I'd like to take a quick second, jotted down a couple notes. This board's listened to, read, considered, invested a lot of hours, and comes down to a pretty sudden end. I'd like to personally thank the petitioner for being and remaining very professional throughout this process. I'd like to thank the office and everyone at this table over here. This has been a lot of load on all of them. And also the audience and members of the community who've taken the time to share concerns and comments. While this will come down to 5 yeses or nos, please trust that this has not been an easy decision for anybody up at this table. So it's going to end quick, but thanks a lot for sticking it out for us.
The vote tally for petition 2024-8, Gen X special exception, are as follows. Janie Livingston, no. Scott Smith, no. Andrew Brunei, no. Rick Hoey, no. Paul Stone, no.
The petition is denied. At this time, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn in a second. All those in favor say aye. We are adjourned.